Hey everybody, Alan Cox here. Have you ever wondered what HR support would look like if it were smart, instant, always available? But today I want to focus on building an agent that can help our organizations answer some very routine HR questions, free somebody from HR up from having to answer all of these questions that might be pretty repetitive and pretty basic in nature. We'll look at building that and a couple different use cases around that. Let's get started. All right, here we are in our Copilot studio, and we're going to create an agent, as I talked about in the introduction. We're going to create an agent that basically is going to sit inside Teams as well as the Copilot chat for our users that they can leverage to ask routine HR questions. And so we're going to go through that process right now. There's a couple ways we could do that. So one, we could just go in here and have Copilot start building out this agent for us, which I do like using the Copilot to do it for a couple of reasons. But we can also just go in and just simply create an agent here, create a new agent here. There's also a bunch of templates we can use that kind of frame a lot of that out for us. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create an agent. I'm just going to tell Copilot kind of what we want. I'm going to say create an agent called, and I'm going to give us HR 247, just an HR, just like that. So HR is available 24/7. That will answer basic HR related questions. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'll just have Copilot just build that out for us. Now, the concept behind the agent, and there are several different types of agents. There's a retrieval agent, there's a task-based agent, and there is an autonomous agent. So a retrieval agent is you're just retrieving information. So the user will interact with that agent, ask it some questions, and just be getting information. Generally, it is done from a sourced knowledge point. So in other words, we're directing exactly where we want the agent to pull the information from. In this case, we'll be using a SharePoint site. And so we'll look at that. Now, the task-based agent is you can take it a step further, and once you get the answer, it can kind of automate some tasks behind that. So, for example, what is our PTO policy? That's a retrieval agent. They can go out to those knowledge sources and pull that kind of information back. Then schedule a PTO. Not only will it go and get information about your PTO, but then it can hook into a system, an HR system, or something ServiceNow or whatever, and actually book your PTO or how much PTO do I have, and retrieve that information. Then there's autonomous agents that is basically acts on a trigger. So email comes in, series of events happen that is usually an automation through Power Automate, but it's usually based on a trigger, not so much interaction with the agent itself. We'll go through those agents over time, but right now we're going to talk about the easiest one, and that is basically the just a retrieval agent. So we've set our description, and by the way, we're going to, we'll get to it, but we're going to be using a knowledge source here that is in our HR site that is basically a part of this hub, just a simple template here. But and under here, I've got an HR site. Under this portal, I've got an HR site, department site, and then some documents there. So we'll be going through that. So it created the basics of this template. It did give it the name HR 24/7. Your it's set up to ask some basic questions, all of that, what the agent can do, other specific topics or types of questions you want HR to focus on or not focus on. We'll get into that in just a minute. I'm actually completely fine with this. I'm going to go ahead and just tell it to create the agent. It's going to take a few minutes for this to create this agent. Okay, so the agent is being created. It's actually created, but it's kind of spinning it up here. When it's ready, we'll be able to hit this edit button here and look at a few different things. But we notice that the agent says, hello, I'm HR 24/7, a virtual assistant. Just so you're aware, sometimes use AI to answer your questions. We're going to be looking at that. That is called a conversational start topic. We'll take a look at that here in just a second. So in a minute, this should light up for us, and we should be able to edit this. And there it is. So a couple things I want to edit here, but as we go down, I wanted to notice that we are using orchestration generative AI to best determine how to respond to users and events. So essentially, orchestration is I'm going to find the right knowledge source or the right source to answer the question. To answer the given prompt. And there's a lot of information out there on that. What I do not want it to do is use its own knowledge. I didn't want it to go out and do web searching or any of that. So I'm going to turn that off here. And yeah, so we're going to go and turn that off. Now, one thing I do want to do is I want to edit a couple things here. So for one, I want to edit the description, answers your question in a clear and helpful manner. That is good. But I do want to change this icon here. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to change this icon. We'll see kind of where this pulls up. And I've got there's a couple things I can do. You notice that HR went up there, but I actually like this one here, this little question mark. So I'm going to do that. Has to be, by the way, it has to be 30K in PNG. So it can't be any more than that. So there's that. We're good there. The reason I like to use Copilot to get the to create the framework for this agent is because it automatically puts in my instructions. I can add to these instructions. So for example, one instruction I may add here, we'll take a look at these. So I can add to these instructions, do not provide legal financial advice, or that's good. But I can also say, and by the way, I can just do a line item here and say, always ask if, or always, let me do this, always thank the user for using HR 247. Okay, just add a little instruction there. We'll save this. Okay. As we go down, by the way, they're also across here. So we've got overview. Now we get into knowledge. Knowledge is here, and I'm going to add knowledge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that HR site. So I'm going to copy the site here, and I'm just going to add this site as a knowledge source. And I can have multiple knowledge sources. Fine. It's going to be a SharePoint site, and I'm just going to do this, paste that right in there, and add that. So we can do. You can do lots of knowledge sources. I believe it may be 20. I have to double check and see what the latest is. But I changed this description here, and I'm going to change this to location where the agent will retrieve answers for users. Just give it a little more description other than, hey, this is an HR site. I just want to give it a little more description. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And we are there. Now, then we've got tools. These used to be called actions. Now they're tools. But tools are basically adding connections. So if I want to add some automation, if I want to add connectors into Model Context Protocol, I'm going to do a video on that really soon. That's really pretty cool and relatively new, but it's a standardization of connectors into Copilot. Really makes things pretty simple. We'll cover that at some point. we're not going to deal with those at this point for this, and we're not going to do triggers. So if I wanted a trigger, it would be more of an autonomous thing. So again, trigger, like, so when a file is created, when a task is completed, so all these triggers, think Power Automate, right? Very useful in autonomous agents. We're not going to use that for this today. And then, of course, now we can nest agents. So, for example, let's say you've got an HR agent. Maybe we'll want a top-level master HR agent. And in there, we want separate agents that do PTO requests, benefits questions or requests, expense reports, right? So we can have agents that kind of do their own little thing, nested, called multi-agent orchestration. We don't have that here. I don't think we're going to need it for what we're doing. And then we have topics, and then we have suggested prompts. So what the user may see when they first engage this agent, it may give them some suggested prompts, and we can guide that. I want to focus for a minute on this area of topics. So we're going to go up here, and I'm going to switch over to topics, and I'm going to look at a couple things. First of all, we have 9 system and 4 custom topics. So 9 system topics, they can be edited and disabled, but they cannot be deleted. These are built in every time you get an agent. You don't necessarily need all of them. I generally just leave them, but we can certainly dive into them more. Now we're going to be modifying a little bit. The custom topics are if you want to kind of guide a conversation based on a topic. Think of topics this way. Let's say you go into a car dealership and you walk in the front door. You walk in that front door and you're going to be greeted with a receptionist there. And that receptionist is basically going to say, how may I help you? Where can I direct your attention? All of those things, right? That reception is basically the equivalent of a conversation start. This conversation start basically says, hey, I'm going to bring, I'm coming into your showroom, and from there, maybe I need to talk to the parts department. Maybe I need to talk to the service department, or maybe I need to talk to the sales department. Well, those are topics that could be handed off and continue a conversation around a specific topic. So that is basically what topics are. So when we get to conversational start, we can see that this message that we get is right here. Okay. I generally like to fix this. I don't like it to say, kind of the default thing. So I'm going to basically say, and you can do whatever you want here, but I'm going to say, hey, hi, I am bot name, which is I'm HR 24/7. That's a variable that's there. So I'm HR 24/7. Okay, but I'm going to say I am here to help you with your basic HR needs. How may I help you? Okay, good. We can leave it at that. We're going to click off and then save. Okay, so now when we refresh our test pane up here, we'll see that this conversational start will change. Okay. And then if I continue to refresh this, we'll see that the conversational start is the same. One thing I like to do is I like to add a message variation. So I like to add a message variation to this and say, I'm your HR. We'll see. How do I want to say it? I would say I'm here to help you with PTO or benefit questions, right? How may I help you? So just a variation, so I don't get kind of the same thing all the time. So when I go to refresh here, okay, let's refresh again. Okay, so in any case, we got some variations going on here, and so that is the idea here. We do have a knowledge source there. We can go and test this. So let's just ask it a question. Our agent is basically live. We've just not published it yet, and we will do that here in just a minute. So we can say, what is our company leave policy? Okay, so we'll get this and see what comes of this here. Okay, so it's pulling the information from our leave policy, and you can see that we have some supporting documents here. It's pulling it from our knowledge source. We've told it that's where we want it to pull from. And now I'm going to just say hi. So we're chatting with our bot right now. Now we can see the conversation. How can I help you today? Okay, so we can watch this conversation in this test pane. We can watch it kind of take shape here and see which path it's going down. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the conversation here, and we're going to look at some other. So remember, we had that message variable. Here's that message variable. Hi, I'm here to help you with your basic HR needs. How may I help you? I'm here to help you with PTO or benefit questions. How may I help you? So this is just variable messages. There's a lot we can do there. But let's go into topics, because now I'm going to create a couple topics that maybe we don't want people talking about. So let's do this. Let's create a topic, and I like to do this from blank, but we certainly can do with Copilot. Actually, let me do one this way. And so the name of the topic is going to be layoffs. Okay, and I want to say anytime a question about layoffs or downsizing is mentioned, refer the user to their HR representative. Okay, and I'm going to let it go at that. So that's kind of what we want. So anytime somebody's asking about that, it's going to create this topic where it's going to basically move them to a department, or somebody in that, that agent is going to say, we're going to move them into, we're going to direct the conversation here. So this tool can handle queries like these: layoffs, recent layoffs, downsize, company size. Okay, so that's what the topic does. If you have questions about downsizing, please contact your HR representative for further assistance. I'm fine with that. I'm going to save that. Okay, so now we go in and we can conversate with this, and we can say, okay, so again, here's that variable question, that variable benefits, that starter prompt, that conversation start. But now I'm going to say, I've heard something about downsizing departments. Okay, and we'll see that the Copilot is anything related to downsizing or this, it's going to prompt this message. And by the way, we could prompt any number of things that happen. We can ask it further questions. We can drill into it. Tons we can do here. We're just doing some very basic stuff here. And so, but that's how we can kind of direct the conversation. Now I'm going to do another topic here. And this topic is going to be around pay and compensations. But I'm going to do this from blank. And here's the triggers. Now this used to be called phrases here, where the trigger would be on a phrase. It basically does the same thing. So we can say pay, compensation, raise, raises, whatever we want, salary. Okay, now what do we want to happen? That's basically our trigger. What do we want to happen? What we want to happen is we want it to send a message. Now we can, again, ask it questions. We can have cards. We can set conditions and do if this, then this, or if this, else this. And we do that a lot in a little more advanced stuff. But we can transfer over to another conversation or another topic. Or we can literally, if you can transfer into, telephone to escalate if you have all of that, a little bit of setup for that. But for what we're doing, we're just simply going to say, okay, if that's the case, then the message is going to be, we're going to send a message. And this message is going to say, if you have questions about compensation, please reach out to your manager. Thank you. Okay. And then that's it. I'm going to click off of that, and then we're going to save that conversation. I do have to give it a title. We're going to call this compensation topic. Okay. All right. So saving that. Cool. Let's bring this test back here. And now we can go here and we can say, how do I get a raise? Okay. And it should bring right back here that, if you have questions about compensation, please reach out to your manager. We're directing this conversation here, and so we are good there. So we're going to go back to topics here. And we can continue to build this out. There's a ton we can do here. If we have this, compensation topic, for example, if you have questions, we can add here. Images, files, message variations, quick replies, basic cards, which is, just some pretty basic information there. There's a lot we can add there, but this is pretty simple and what we wanted to get to here. Now, we can always look at activity. How many times have agents been run and what have they done? I've canceled some things here, but we can see that the compensation topic has been completed. We've run through that. We can look at analytics. How much is my agent being used and all of that. Okay. We'd have to publish this. We have not published. We're going to publish here in just a second. So we're going to go to channels here. Now I want to deploy this agent. Okay. This agent is working. And I'm going to deploy it to Teams and Microsoft 365 Copilot. Okay. So first thing is I want to make it available to Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? It's going to be available in the Copilot chat. Then I want the agent to be available in Teams. So we're going to add channel, and all this is just saying I'm going to allow this to be deployed, but I have to publish it, so we're going to publish it here. And then it's basically turning it on for the capability of Teams. So I can close this, and it's going to continue to do it in the background. And while it's doing it, once it's done, these options here will light up. And the channel was added. Okay, I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back into channels here. All right, the agent is now published. Now we have availability options. See your agent in Microsoft 365, see agent in Teams. So what I'm going to do here, first I'm going to look at this. I'm going to edit details because I'm going to change this here, this icon. It's interesting that I'm going to change the color. And I'll change this icon here, and this is where we're going to go right back to where we were, and I'm going to add this in here. Okay. Show agent disclaimer. We can add some additional stuff here. There's descriptions and all of this. Short description built by Copilot Studio. That's fine. We're going to save that. And now I'm going to do availability options. And I'm going to, the one I like to use the most is show to everyone in my org. Now you can control this, who you want to be able to have access to this. You can do this in a lot of different ways. But I'm going to show to everyone in my org. I'm not setting up SSO for this meeting, for this session, but we could actually create this as an app inside of Entra ID, as an enterprise app. It shows up in the App Store, does all kinds of things, and we can do this app ID and all of that. I'm going to copy it, but I'm not really going to use it for what we're doing here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to submit this to admin approval as an application. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to give everyone basically rights to it. Now, the agent is published, and it is being deployed, but I'm going to go out to the Teams Admin Center, and I'm going to allow this app to be used inside of Microsoft Teams for our users. And I'm going to show you what this looks like here. So I'm going to go here. I'm in the Teams Admin Center. I'm going to go down to Teams Apps. I'm going to go to Manage Apps. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over and this loads up for me here. I'm going to just search for this app, and we're going to go HR 247. And there it is, built using Copilot Studio. Notice it is blocked. Okay, so I'm going to open this app here, and as an admin, as a Teams admin, global admin, I can go in and I can publish this app. And I'm going to publish this app inside of Teams, meaning it is now will be available in the App Store. So for example, if I were to go into Teams and I go to Apps, and we'll see here as we go, you can see there it shows up right there, HR 247. I can add it to Teams. Okay, here I can add it to my Teams, but I'm gonna force this to everybody. I don't have to, but I'm going to in this case. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the setup policies. So if you go to setup policies, this in this case I have pretty much one policy. This dictates how Teams will appear to your users. You can totally configure this, but notice this is how Teams appears to pretty much everybody in this particular org default policy, which is the default. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to add an app, and I'm going to add that HR 247 app. So I'm going to add HR 247 app. There it is. I'm going to select it and add. So it's now in Teams, and it will be for everybody that is part of this policy, which by default is everybody. But I'm going to drag this up all the way to number 2. So it's going to show up under activity, and I'm going to save that. Okay, and now I'm going to go back to my Teams, and I'm just going to go to chat here. But we should see this show up. Got it? We should see this show up right there under activity, which is exactly where we were. Now here's my message. I'm HR. I'm here to help you with your basic HR needs. How may I help you? Remember, we can now view prompts. These are some basic prompts. What is the company's leave policy? Okay, so now I'm interacting with this bot agent, and somebody from HR isn't having to answer these routine questions, and I'm guiding where the conversation's going and where the conversation and information is coming from. And so here is the answer that I just asked for there, and it is directing it to a policy. But now if I were to say, hey, let's see, how do I get a raise Remember, we created a custom topic to handle this exact conversation. If you have questions about compensation, please reach out to your manager. Thank you. And also layoffs. Remember, we created a conversation or a topic around layoffs. And if you have questions about layoffs or downsizing, please contact your HR representative for further assistance. Cool. So our agent is working. It's deployed in Teams. For everybody in the organization, they have access to it because we've published it and deployed it. Now, in my chat area, I can go to, let's see if this has showed up yet. We've told it to, but let's see. Let's go to all agents here and see if this has showed up yet. All right, so I am in the chat desktop version here, and I know some things take just a little bit longer. I'm going to close this desktop here. I'm going to reopen this and see if our agent has showed up, and I do not see it here. However, the interesting thing is, let's go to well, I could open that today, but let's go to the desktop or the browser version, basically office.com, and go to all agents here. And if I scroll down here, I will see built by your organization, and the user should see this as well because I've pretty not directed this to a specific group or user. So I'm just going to open this here, and I'm going to tell it to add. And it works across Office and Teams, of course. We have it, we deployed it in Teams, but I wanted to show up over here in this chat here, and there we see our HR agent, and of course we can customize the developer name and all of that stuff that we want to do there. Now I'm curious if it will show up here now that I've actually deployed it. So I'm going to close this and reopen. It will show up. It sometimes just takes it a little bit extra time in the Office desktop app. And I've also noticed some oddities, frankly, with the desktop app recently. So has not showed up, but I trust that it will. Not too concerned about that. It will show up. But in any case, here in the browser version of the Copilot chat, we do see that our agent is there, and of course we have all of the same prompts and activities we can do here. Exactly the same as we saw before in Teams. So it's essentially the same agent, we'll let this return here. But there you have it. In roughly 30 minutes, really less than 30 minutes, we have gone from basically creating a Copilot agent from absolute scratch, from literally nothing, set up a few different conversational topics we wanted it to follow. Notice that in my instructions earlier, I said always wanted it to thank you for using Copilot or HR 247, and there it actually followed that instruction. So in any case, I hope this has been helpful for you, and I want to thank you for watching.